Hi guys, welcome back. So remember this white-coded expense tracker, the front end we built last time? Yeah, it looks cool, but it's hiding some serious problems. So my name is Michael, and we are on a mission to build a fully functional smart expense tracker using Jack. And last time we got the front end looking great with white coding, but as developers, the real work starts when things break. So today, we are not just going to be fixing one bug. We are going to be diving deep into the code, tracing the data flows, and making this rock solid, at least in the basic workflow. So let's get started. So in our last video, we kind of, out of our code in the front end, we made a few edits in the end, fixing up some bugs, some syntax errors, especially in the add expense walker and the init graph. So before we get into the debugging, let's just, run a simple test and see exactly where this is going wrong. So we have our total expenses at 0, which is showing the dashboard nicely, and we can add an expense manually, or we can, put it from text or even from images. So let's do the basic workflow today. So let's add an expense. So let's assume I spend $10 on, let's say Starbucks. So if you take it as food, and the merchant would be Starbucks, and the date, let's put maybe today's date, and let's add the expense. Okay, so there's a problem here. As you can see, I added the expense, but it's not really reflecting on the dashboard. Nothing is showing. Let's try that one more time just to make sure. So food, Starbucks, and okay. Yep, still showing 0. So let's go back to VS Code and see what the issue is. All right, so here we are. And let's have a look at these logs. So as you can see, it's actually being tracked. It has added the expense amount $10, currency is USD, and the category has been recognized as food. So last time, when we added an expense onto our white coded front end, it was showing the category as other, which was problematic, and then we resolved it in the end of the video. So what's happening now is these expenses are getting added, but it's not really showing on the dashboard. So maybe there's a problem with how this data has been recorded. So let's have a look at our app.jack file, see what's going wrong. So, okay, this is the add expense walker, and we changed this last time to this was only category name dot upper, but that was problem. And I think these are fine. The problem is with the get dashboard data. So let's see what's up here. Okay, so we have our calculate data function here, the attribute, and expense in expense. Okay, this should be, I think this is a problem. So the correct syntax, actually last time, the earlier part of our series, we had it like this, something like that, but this is not the way it's supposed to be typed in. So the real way is actually entering it inside these brackets, the square brackets. So for expense in category, so each category will have a list of expenses, and okay, if this expense starts with this month, we are going to add it to our total of the category expenses and also the total expenses. So that's fixed. Maybe that was an issue. And right, then we have the biggest category as well. Let's see, get expenses by category. So here we are using it to render the dashboard. Let's see if there's anything wrong here. Okay, we need to remove this as well. Dot upper, because the categories actually will be in normal letters. Just the first letter will be capital and then simple throughout. And here also we need to have cat. So, oops, cat. Okay, that's done. And then we have the other AI function. So these we are not testing it right. We won't be testing it in today's video. We'll be testing the basic workflow. So let's save this, and I'm going to shut down the server, and let's serve it once more. And let's go over to our browser tab and see what's going on with our expense tracker. Okay, so here we are. And as you can see, I mean, the UI has changed a bit. We are seeing a different message here telling us to add our first expense. So let's see. I mean, let's see if we've resolved the problem. Let's try adding the same expense one more time. $10 food, Starbucks, and the date. So today's date. Add expense. Okay, no, it looks like it's still failing to show up on the dashboard. So I think it's a problem with basically it's being recorded in the backend. So we saw the logs. The backend is adding the expenses properly, but it's a matter of whether this data is being sent to the front end in the the correct structure in the expected types, the expected format, and so on. So let's go back to VS Code and see if there are any potential issues. All right, so let's see. We have our add expense walk over here, and this is the get dashboard data. So there's a problem, I think, with how this data is going to our front end, or basically the data being reported, being tracked, and how it's being calculated and all that. Um, so we have our expenses, and each expense has its own set of details. So we're adding the category total here with the amount USD, and this expense, this amount USD, ideally would be a float. So getting it here, self.amount is what we are getting from this, which is a float. I'm not sure. Let's see. So let's try. So we need to make sure that when this is being added to our category total to show up on the dashboard, it has to be in the correct format. So let's maybe let's make sure. Let's explicitly declare this as float. Also, let's make condition here if is instance. Yeah, no, it actually this should be a string. Yeah, that's better. Okay, float if it's a string, else should be expense.usd. Yeah, so what we're doing is we're checking whether it is actually a float, and if it is a string, it will convert it to a float, or else if it is a float, it should just send this. So let's perform the same. If let's see there's another problem anywhere else as well. Okay, it's fine. Let's make sure that this is also a float. Yeah. Let's do it for amount USD as well. And adding an expense from text. Let's do that here as well. So that's better. This is our query expenses walker as well. Oh, there's another problem here as well. Let's fix that. Yeah, it should be cat. Cool. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. I think that was the issue where, because I feel like the rest of the syntax is correct. It's just a problem where whether this amount, if it is, if it is in fact a string, it could form a problem because it's the front end expects a float in terms of these parameters being passed in the object, but it's getting a string, and then, there can be an issue with rendering the dashboard correctly. So let's serve uh, the app.jack file, the main file, and let's see what happens on our browser. Okay, so looks like we've made some progress, and I was right about the problem with the format of the data being sent to the front end. So that making that amount USD explicitly a float in the case it was a string seems to have done the fix. So now we can see the total expenses of $30. That's because, well, when we added the expense, the Starbucks receipt three times, it was recorded three times. So that's why we can see the category breakdown as food. There are no other categories that we spent on yet. So let's add another expense. Maybe let's say we spent $12 on let's say transport, and the merchant was Uber, and let's put the date maybe, let's say yesterday, the 14th of December. And I'm going to add the expense. Let's see. Okay, nice. So has gotten 2 cards. Nicely, looks good. And the total expenses also reflects $42. So that's great. And well, we have the adding the expenses now seems to be working fine. Let's add another one more expense, maybe $20. Let's say entertainment, and let's say the movie, some cinema. Let's say Liberty Cinema. Let's put the date as well. Maybe the 12th of December. Add expense. Great. Okay. So it's working and it's also showing us the biggest category, food. So now let's query our expenses. So I want to know how much did I spend on uh, transport this month. Let's put a search. Okay, so like it's taking a bit of time. So let's go over to VS Code and see the logs, whether an answer is actually being generated for this query expense worker. Because it looks like there are no answers being generated onto the front end. So let's go back to VS Code. Okay, so we are here and let's have a look at the logs. So what's happening is, so we got our expenses added successfully twice, and this $20 also has been from the entertainment. It's yeah, entertainment. Let's see, the merchants are also being tracked. Liberty Cinema. The problem was, so when we clicked on the search button, this Walker query expenses, this Walker has been hit, the endpoint has been hit, but as you can see, there's no answer, no AI response from the Walker endpoint. So there's a problem with our query expenses Walker. So I did the query conversation context, processing the query, then it needs to fetch the expenses. It's tracking all the expenses into this one list, and then it's being sent over to this AI utility function which we defined earlier on with the query and the conversation context. And also, yeah. So the issue is that ideally this is the report and it's not coming here, meaning it's not hitting this AI response, or maybe it is hitting, but it's failing silently. So looks like there is no debugging here. So let's try vibe coding this a bit. So I'm going to ask the agent to add some debugging to the query expense walker uh, to identify some debugging the query expense walker. Yeah, let's do that. So let's see what happens. All right, so got some debugging. Let's keep it. So now we will be able to see exactly what's going on the back end and identify where the problem is. So I'm going to shut down the server and let's run it once more. And let's go over to our browser. All right, so let's try that one more time. How much did I spend on food last month? Search. And now let's go back to VS Code and see what the logs are. All right, so we've gotten some logs and looks like, so when we hit the query expense walker, we're getting the query and then we're getting the full object, the conversation context, showing us the expenses and all that. And then it goes on to call the parse natural language query, which is essentially this one, this function over here with the query and the conversation context. But it's also giving us the past query result. Okay, so that is successful. We're getting the operation is a sum, the category is food, we've gotten the date range as well. But then it goes to call the process query response and it's failing here. So there's a problem with this function, which we have defined in our AI utils file. So let's check that file out. So this is the problematic function. So why is it failing? So we are passing the query parameters. Expenses is a list of dictionary. Okay. So what this should work individually. What we are passing here into this function is the past query, which should be completely fine. So the past query, let's see. will be we are getting this object, query parameters object, and then the query parameters object is being passed to this function. So this should be fine. This is all right. If there is an issue, I believe it would be in this parameter. This expenses is a list of a dictionary. What we can do here, either we can define the dictionary like to be maybe string and any or something like that, or else I think the best thing to do here is we'll define another object. So I'm going to go over here and let's say object, set a comment here, defining expenses object. Then I'm going to expense object. No. Yeah, okay, let's remove this confidence. We don't need the confidence. So we have amount, currency, date, category, merchant. If we are passing here amount, category, yeah, that should be okay. So we've defined an object, and I'm going to use this expense object here in the query response. So without having a list, which instead of that, yeah, we're going to have an expense object instead, yes, a list of expense objects. And we need to also fix up our expenses here. Expense object. I'm going to save this file. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's go back to our app.check and dot append expense object. All right, yeah. There's a small syntax error here. Okay, so I'm going to remove the debug. Just save this first. Remove the debug statements. It's feeling a little lazy. Let's get the agent to remove that. And I think we should also import the expense object from the AI utils because that's where we're defining it. So let's add that once the agent has finished making the edits. Keep. And yeah, process query response, expense object. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so let's try this one more time. I'm going to ask how much did I spend on transport yesterday? And let's search. Okay, so let's see if we are getting an answer. Okay, so it has actually come. Okay, so right, there's a problem with how the date is being extracted. So I think we'll have to work on this, particularly with the prompt, or maybe when we are passing the date into the query, we are extracting it from the get date, get current date function, and pass the correct date there. So other than that, it looks good. So let's ask another question: how much did I spend on Uber rides? Let's see if we can get a response. So we're having a very nice clean front end. We're getting it's the answer is coming in a particular structure. So okay, so we've got a breakdown. It changes. It depends on the query as well. So when I asked on Uber, it's just showing okay, this is the category. It's transport. We spent $12. If I add another expense, say let's say I spent $23 on transport, maybe another Uber, and let's say this expense was say the 11th of December. I'm going to add that expense, and if I just search the same query again, So it's showing, yeah. So it pretty much depends. If there's a trend that has been detected, it'll get updated, or else it will just show, there's no such trend. We can see the key insights, the total transportation expense with Uber is a significant part. So these are all, it's a very dependent on how you have tracked your expenses, what the expenses are you're tracking. So these are just some sample expenses we tracked, and that's why even the food, it's all Starbucks. And yeah, so with time, let's today we verified the basic functionality of our expense tracker, not the smart expense tracker, just expense tracker. So we can track our food, our transport, our entertainment, all our expenses manually, and we can also talk to our data query and see exactly what's going on. We can get much more insights as well, depending on how we phrase our question. So that is what we plan on doing today, and we are going to test out our AI features. I promise you, we will be adding expenses from text and from images and seeing, and if whether it's all functional. I know these are the exciting features of our smart expense tracker, and in the next video we will debug any problems we face in that regard. So yes, that brings an end to this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. We've come a really long way from the time we started, from drafting that plan and coming up with the architecture to getting a smart expense tracker. Actually, we're almost there, 90% there. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, drop a comment, and let me know what you think. So I'll see you again in our next video. Goodbye.